Hello again. Welcome back. This is video 3 in what has turned out to be a 3-part series. My original intention was just to film one video, but that didn't happen because of time constraints, so that became 2 videos. And then there are a number of things I think I could have done better on the second video, and so we're going to try to rectify those here, in addition to answering some of the questions that folks have posted. So let's just go ahead and get into that. And we're going to start off by looking at the refresh rates and making some tweaks and seeing if we can make the ghosting improve on the Air, or Nova Air C, which we're going to call the Air. By putting this on A2, which I did for most of the demonstrations, it created a lot of ghosting. And we even saw that on the UI. And that's actually quite rare. So I realized I probably should have put this on normal instead, which is going to really improve the ghosting and put it on a much better footing with the Tab Mini C, which we'll call the Mini. Now the Tab Mini C, I feel pretty happy with the settings that we had on that, so we're going to stick with ultra fast. There's no changes here. This is more about changing the Air and seeing how it can compete even closer than it did in the last video. I want to start off by noting that system-wide will be on 5 taps for a full refresh frequency, so that's true on both devices. So we'll click OK. And why don't we quickly go in to the Kindle app, and we're just going to jump right in to the comic. And let's take a look at our settings to make sure that they're what we want them to be. Ultra fast at 0, perfect. And over here, we are at normal and 0 across the board. That's what we want, although, let's go ahead and refresh both screens. In these modes, I think what we're going to find is the refresh is going to be much better, much less ghosting over here, but the color now is dramatically different between the two, much more vibrant over here than it is over here. But let's take a look at the ghosting first. So this is better on the ghosting now. You can see it refreshing each time. But the Mini doesn't have to refresh like that, and it's got the better color, and it doesn't have any ghosting. So it solves one problem, but it creates another in the color. So why don't we try a different mode? Let's try speed mode, I guess. We're still at 0. Okay, I'm getting better color there. Let's refresh. Whoops. There we go. Okay, the color is much more comparable. Let's keep going and see how the ghosting goes. Let's go back for a second. One thing I noticed, I only noticed this on the video one time, but there are color differences, and you can see it here in the rock. Here you see kind of a yellowish, kind of yellow-brown kind of rock, and over here it's a little more purple even. So that's interesting. It looks like this is a much better comparison between the two, however, because I'm not seeing a lot of ghosting on either one. Okay, so there's a little bit of ghosting on both. It's a little more present here, but I would say it's pretty close to each other. Definitely the colors seem to pop a little bit more on this one than over here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, both look good in this one. Oops. Same mistake both times. Fantastic. Am I hitting the wrong button? There we go. Okay, a little bit. Yeah, we're still getting some more ghosting. Yeah, you can see some ghosting over here. No ghosting over here. Okay, so at least with the Kindle and with comics, we can make a setting for the air that basically matches what the Mini can do, but you lose some of the color vibrancy. If you switch back to the color vibrancy, you can get close to it, but the Mini is better because you have ghosting on one and you don't really have it as much on the other. There's still some ghosting here, but I don't see any in this image, for example. And then there are some color differences. Now what's interesting is I'm not sure these color differences matter all that much. If I was looking at this by itself without this image, I don't think I would note that this color is wrong, and vice versa. And in fact, I'm not actually sure which is the proper color relative to the source material, but they are different. So I wouldn't necessarily call one better over the other. However, the ghosting remains better over here unless you make the adjustment, and then the colors is way better on the Mini. Okay, well, it looks like my original using A2 actually wasn't as bad of a faux pas as I had feared. So at least on the Kindle. Let's take a look at Google News. So what we're doing here is I'm focusing on these two apps, the Kindle because comics is something I think a lot of people are interested in with a color e-reader, and Google News because that's got more photos, text, and scrolling. So I'm just looking at those two because I think those tell a story. And where is Google News? Here it is. While that's switching over, I'll go into the e-ink center. Okay, zeros, ultra fast, beautiful, over here. Zeros, normal. We'll start with that and see what it looks like. So, I tapped that by accident. Let's get out of that. Let's just see how they scroll. Oops. Okay, that flash, we saw that with the comics as well. So that's going to get rid of the ghosting. Let me see if I can scroll on the side here so we can see them side by side. In fact, let me do it over here. Okay, a little more flickering going on over here, a much smoother scrolling experience over here. Let's go back to the top. Take a look at this image, see if we can get a bigger version of that image. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. A little bit bolder over here, a little more drab on this one. That's interesting. And I think with images, that's where you might see, the damn paywall. That's where you might see more of a difference in the pixel density. You won't see that as much with comics, but you'll see it, or in theory would see it more in pictures. So not sure if that's playing a factor here. Let's go into a different mode and see what we get. We'll go into speed. Okay, the colors look much better, much closer with speed mode. Let's see how they scroll. So we'll go back, like so. Okay, so a little bit of ghosting, not bad. It scrolls a little smoother and faster on this one. I think that's true. I don't think that's user error. Let's go back to A2 and remind us what that looked like. So A2 has a little bit more ghosting. So in this case, if we switch away from A2 to the speed mode, images still look good. The ghosting is there, but not quite as bad. So there's definitely a benefit from going A2 to speed mode on this device. It's handling this better. Still a little ghosting in there. But the Mini still is outperforming even when you move into speed mode. Okay, I just wanted to make those comparisons and make sure I was giving a fair shake to the Air. because I don't think I was. And in this case, yeah, indeed, doing A2 made the ghosting a little bit worse. But still, the Mini is the better one, but does not blow the air out of the water. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to rectify is around the note-taking app. You'll recall, if you saw the last video, that's the second look video, we went in here and I had noticed that the chartreuse and the blue had looked black in this image, and over here in the air, they looked like they were supposed to look. And it turns out that was an error on my part, and you can actually see that here too. The blue is looking, it's not quite as black as I think it was in our other video, but the issue was around the e-ink center, and I didn't realize this, but the dark color enhancement was set to 26. It was on ultra fast, which was correct, but we had the dark enhancement on. Let's get rid of that, and now clearly that's blue, and clearly that's chartreuse. So that was an error on my part. It's not a problem with the device. These colors are fine. It's just there was too much dark enhancement, and then it, for whatever reason, impacted those two colors in particular. Let's go back in and add a little bit of dark enhancement. Take another look at that. We'll go up to about 20. And you can see the other colors aren't as affected, but the blue and the chartreuse, well, especially the blue, shifts a little bit. Oh, there we go. So I refresh. Yeah, a little bit toward black, maybe because they're the darker colors. But that was user error. That wasn't the device at all. Just make sure that your settings are lower on dark enhancement. Let's go to like 8, for example. Yeah, you can on refresh. Right, you can. Yeah, that's good. That's a good blue, good chartreuse. So no problem there. This is not an issue as it looked like it might have been in the second video. So my apologies, but thankfully I was able to rectify that. Want to make a quick comment about battery life. I was able to kind of have both devices go overnight. They were on standby mode. Wi-Fi was still enabled, although I believe these devices shut off Wi-Fi in standby mode. Both devices drained battery equally. They drained about 3% over a 22-hour period. That's roughly 1% every 7 hours, and that would equate to about roughly a month of standby time, which is an estimate. That's the back of the envelope estimate. It's just one small sample size, but both appear to have fairly decent, not world class certainly, but more than acceptable standby battery drain. I haven't had any opportunity to do any type of testing on the actual usage, and that is one area of concern with the Mini, as the Tab Ultra C, the larger sibling of this device, tends to be known for having a notable battery drain while in use. And actually, in the Tab Ultra's case, the standby time is actually really good on that device too. So we really don't have any idea from my battery test how this will drain in actual performance, and that's something that will have to come up in other reviews, and I might be able to do some additional testing down the line. But for standby battery, they're both pretty comparable, and they're both pretty good. Someone asked me to compare these to a white screen, to white and to other type of e-ink screens. And so let me do this. I'm going to do this white piece of paper, which I'll just stick in the middle there. And you can see, these are very dark screens relative to a white, the white color. So that's one comparison. If I bring over the Supernote, which is the only device I own that isn't a form of Kaleido or gallery screen, here again is a white versus the e-ink screen. You can see the e-ink screen is like a light gray, so it's certainly not white. The border is pretty darn close to white. Which, I mean, it's a white border, but I'm surprised how close it is to the piece of paper, actually. But not the screen. So let's now compare. If I move this over. So here's a sense of how dark Kaleido is versus a normal e-ink screen. And this is why in a lot more you have to rely on the front lighting in more situations than you would a normal e-ink screen, and it's because of that darkness layer. For those that don't know, the way that Kaleido works is that it's a black and white screen, and there's a color filter that sits on top of that screen, and that's why you get this additional darkness. So this is what helps give the color to the device, which this device doesn't have, and therefore this one is lighter because it doesn't have that layer on top. So there's a comparison of what the screens look like, more traditional e-ink versus a Kaleido screen. Okay. Moving on along, there was one request to take a look at magazines. And to do that, we're going to go into an app called Flipster. I use Flipster because I'm able to connect that to my local library. I have a library card, and that allows me to read these magazines for free. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and click on that. And we'll go into this in just a second, but let's go ahead and take a look at the covers and compare those. Let's take a quick look at our e-ink settings again to make sure we're where we want to be. Ultra fast, let's take that down to 0. Cool. All right, we'll refresh that, very good. And we'll go down here. We're not going to be on normal on this one. We're gonna be on speed. I'll show you why as we demonstrate in the magazine, but this is what we wanted, so perfect. All right, very good, and we will refresh the screen like so, and let's do a little, actually, let's start from the beginning. There we go. Let's do a little scroll test. A little smoother on the Mini, but the Air is not bad. A little choppier. Let's see, that's a little smoother. It's a little choppier. Magazines, a little bit, I think I see a little bit of ghosting in the title there, but not a lot. Not too bad. Okay, let's go ahead and focus on this People magazine. Click this, click this. Both had some ghosting. In fact, both, you can see it right there. Both have a little bit of ghosting there. Remember, we're on 5-tap refresh. Let's go ahead and take a look. Similar themes, a little bit smoother over here, virtually no ghosting, a little bit of ghosting over here, not quite as smooth. Let's go ahead and, but what's interesting is the text looks a little darker on this one. But remember, it's easy to manipulate the settings to darken the text a little bit better. We're just trying to do a basic comparison. Let me double tap on that. Okay, and I'll do each one at a time. So let's not trigger the tab, so I can double clicking zooms into the text, and now I can go over and scroll pretty quickly. Very nice. Okay, let's go over here. Again, let's not do that. Let's scroll up. Not quite as smooth, but still not too bad. Now, let's go into the e-ink center, and I'll show you why I did not select normal for the magazine app. I'm going to go ahead and scroll. Not good. That's very annoying. That could give you a seizure if you're susceptible to that. So that's the reason why in this particular case, instead of picking normal. I went with speed, and speed, again, for this device, seems to be the best in terms of the balance between color, performance, and ghosting. So what that means when you compare this to this device is the Mini is a little bit smoother, a little bit less ghosting, and yeah, and then the Air obviously is the inverse. So clearly the Mini is the better device of the two, but it's not a chasm between them. Oh, and the color vibrancy. The color vibrancy is a little bit better, although those both look pretty good, and you do see some ghosting here. So it's not that ghosting is completely absent, but it is improved. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and wrap this up, and I'll refresh to put these both in their best light as we, or actually, let's just go back to the home screen. My overall conclusion from the last video, the second look at these devices, pretty much is the same. I thought by switching some of the refresh modes on the Air that would improve ghosting. It did, but in that process, it sacrificed other things where we didn't have to tweak the Mini at all. So I'm actually starting to feel a little bit more of a gap between the Mini and the Air, although, again, if you have the Air, is it good to upgrade? I'm not quite sure it is. And again, especially if you're reading novels like in Kobo, or you're reading books and that sort of thing. If you're moving more towards scrolling, any apps that require scrolling, then I think the Mini starts to have more of an advantage in those types of situations, more advantage in photos. And in terms of the note-taking apps, they're pretty comparable in terms of the writing experience. So I don't think there's much of I'm not sure there's much of a difference there at all. And of course the apps are identical. So that's my overall thoughts, and barring any additional questions that might require me to film another video, I think that might complete, knock on wood, the Tab Mini C trilogy. I really hope this is helpful. The point of doing these is to kind of show off the devices in actual usage. And so I'm giving an opinion, but the opinion's just the glue. Hopefully you're getting what you need from looking at the demonstrations, and that's helpful in whatever buying decision that you're going to make. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day, and until next time.